You need to hear this, because most people never see it coming. The moment you stopped pursuing them, they noticed immediately. But not in the way you might expect. Not with relief, not with calm indifference. They noticed with sudden clarity, the kind that feels sharp and unsettling inside the mind, like something just shifted and cannot be ignored anymore. When you stop chasing, the situation does not just change on the surface. Something deeper changes in how they experience you. The person you once went after begins a quiet process inside themselves, something internal and unstable that they cannot fully explain. It feels like something is slowly breaking in their emotional world, even if everything looks normal on the outside. This is where things become difficult for them. They start to feel a kind of empty space where your attention used to be. That space feels strange because they were never fully aware it existed before. Now it feels obvious. It feels large. And more importantly, it feels uncomfortable. They are not used to silence in that place, so they begin to feel uneasy without understanding why. Your absence is not experienced as simple absence in their mind. It starts acting like a mirror instead. It reflects things back at them they were not ready to see. It shows them emotions, assumptions, and expectations they never questioned before. They begin to realize that the sense of control or certainty they thought they had over you is no longer there. When that sense of control disappears, their inner world starts to shift. They feel restless in ways they cannot easily explain. Their thoughts become more active, more chaotic. They start thinking about what changed and why it feels so different now. The quiet becomes louder in their mind than any actual words. Slowly, uncomfortable thoughts begin to appear. Thoughts they normally avoid during the day return at night when things are quiet. They start questioning whether they wanted you for who you really are, or only for how you made them feel about themselves. This question is not easy for them to sit with, so their mind keeps moving around it, instead of facing it directly. As time passes and you remain distant, the image they built in their mind begins to weaken. It no longer feels stable. It starts to break apart in small ways. They cannot fully understand it yet, but something about their perception of you and the situation is no longer holding together in the same way. Their mind becomes divided. One part of them holds on to hope or assumption that things could still be the same. Another part starts noticing that something has already changed. This internal division creates emotional pressure. They feel pulled in two directions at once, and that creates confusion that is hard to settle. They begin to imagine your life without them in it. They picture you laughing, talking, moving forward, and living moments that do not include them anymore. Even if these images are not accurate, their mind treats them as emotionally real. And each imagined moment adds another layer of discomfort. It is not only longing that appears. Other emotions start mixing in. Anger begins to show up, along with fear and guilt. They may not fully understand why they feel this way, but the emotions overlap and become hard to separate. This can lead to reactions that seem inconsistent or unpredictable. Most people do not directly face this kind of inner discomfort. They try to distract themselves or ignore it. But when you stepped back, you created a situation where they can no longer avoid it in the same way. The silence forces them to sit with thoughts they were not ready to process. Something deeper begins to surface inside them. Thoughts and feelings that were previously pushed down start to rise again. The inner voice that was quiet for a long time becomes louder. It begins questioning what is happening, what they lost, and what they still want. They start remembering small details. Conversations, messages, moments, expressions, and interactions they once overlooked now feel more important in hindsight. Their mind replays these moments repeatedly, trying to find meaning or explanation in them. This is where the emotional tension increases. They feel a strong need to do something about it, even if they do not know exactly what to do. The human mind struggles deeply with uncertainty, and unfinished emotional situations. And you have created a situation that feels unfinished to them. You may not notice it from your side. From your perspective, silence can feel like distance, calm, or even closure. But for them, that same silence can feel active. It feels like something unresolved that keeps returning in their thoughts. When they realize they cannot easily bring you back into chasing them or reacting the way you used to, something in their internal image begins to weaken further. The version of events they built in their mind starts to collapse. And when that structure weakens, hidden emotions begin to surface more clearly. They start seeing parts of themselves they did not want to see. Their reactions, their expectations, their assumptions, and their emotional dependence become harder to ignore. Even if they do not admit it outwardly, something shifts internally. They struggle to understand their own reactions. It can feel confusing even to them. One moment they feel distant and detached, and the next moment they feel strongly pulled back into thinking about you again. This back and forth creates emotional instability. In your silence, you have become a central point in their inner world. Not because you are doing anything, but because your absence keeps triggering reflection. The space you left behind does not stay empty in their mind. It keeps filling with thoughts they cannot fully control. Here is the deeper truth they slowly begin to feel, even if they do not say it out loud. Absence can feel more disturbing than rejection. Rejection is clear and defined. It has a shape. It gives closure in a direct way. But absence feels open, unfinished, and uncertain. That uncertainty makes their minds search for meaning everywhere. They begin overanalyzing small details. A slow reply, a missed message, a change in tone, or a moment that once felt small now becomes something they replay again and again. Their mind tries to build a story out of these fragments. It tries to create explanations so things feel less uncertain. But this effort does not bring peace. Instead, it creates more thinking, more questioning, and more emotional tension. They begin to doubt their own past decisions. They ask themselves if they misunderstood you, if they pushed too far, or if they failed to appreciate something important. These doubts do not come in a straight line. They come in waves, returning repeatedly in quiet moments. Over time, the emotional pressure builds. Their mind tries to regain a sense of control by imagining different outcomes or possible ways to fix what feels unresolved. Sometimes this appears as a desire to reconnect, sometimes as regret, and sometimes as frustration. They feel trapped between wanting clarity and fearing what clarity might actually mean. Because clarity might confirm that something has changed permanently, and that is difficult for them to accept. At the same time, their emotions become more complex. Wanting, regret, fear, and pride all mix together. They cannot easily separate one feeling from another. This creates inner conflict that does not settle quickly. They may appear calm on the outside, but internally they are dealing with emotional tension that shifts constantly. One side of them wants connection again. Another side resists vulnerability and tries to regain control through distance or pride. And here is the strange part. You did not do anything dramatic. You simply stopped chasing. But that single change is enough to disturb the balance they were used to. It removes the familiar pattern they relied on emotionally. This is why the mind reacts so strongly. It does not like emotional uncertainty. It prefers patterns, predictability, and control. When those are removed, it starts generating thoughts to fill the gap. The longer you remain distant, the more active this inner process becomes. They begin noticing things about you they previously ignored. The way you carry yourself, the way you interact with others, and the way you continue your life without them now stands out more clearly. Each new realization adds weight to their thoughts. Each moment of reflection adds pressure. And even though life continues normally on the outside, inside their mind there is an ongoing struggle between attachment, uncertainty, and emotional resistance. In that stuck place, they begin creating situations in their mind that they never imagined before. They start building thoughts of having power again, thoughts of somehow coming back into your life, and thoughts of getting even in some way. This happens because your step back has shown them a simple truth. You are not theirs to control, direct, or own. You never really were. And that truth feels painful to them in a deep way. And here is the question that remains open for now. They are alert now, even if they do not fully understand it yet. Their inner mind has started reacting in ways they cannot clearly explain. In some ways, it feels like their thoughts are turning against them. They do not know where this will lead next. Something has already started inside them, and they are right in the middle of it without realizing the full picture. They begin to feel like they are slowly breaking apart, even if nothing on the outside shows it yet. It starts in small ways. A tight feeling in the body that has no clear reason. A sudden wave of worry that surprises them. A strange discomfort that comes and goes. But it does not stay small for long. It keeps growing quietly in the background of their mind. A slow pressure builds up in every thought, every urge, and every moment they sit alone. Here is the difficult truth they are now facing. Your absence is not empty. It acts like a mirror they cannot easily turn away from. And what they see in that mirror is not comfortable for them. It shows them parts of themselves they normally avoid. It shows their insecurity, their emotional dependence, and the fear they have about not being in control. If you feel like this is what is happening, just think of the word mirror for a moment. For a long time, they were holding on to an image of themselves as strong, unaffected, and in control. They built stories where they did not need anyone, where they were always fine on their own, and where they could not be shaken emotionally. But your absence removes those stories without any effort at all. You did not need to argue or fight. You only stepped back, and that was enough to disturb everything they were standing on. Most people think emotional impact only comes from direct action, from arguments or confrontation. But that is not always true. Sometimes silence is stronger. Sometimes distance speaks louder than words. When you stop chasing, something changes in the other person's inner world. It forces them to face thoughts they were avoiding. Now their inner mind becomes more active than before. Everything they pushed down starts rising again. Old feelings they ignored begin to surface. Thoughts they thought they had control over start to break through. Even their pride and resistance begin to feel unstable, like they cannot fully rely on it anymore. They start to experience a strange mix of emotions. Wanting you, but also feeling irritated. Caring, but also feeling uncertain. Missing you, but also feeling frustrated at themselves for missing you. Their emotions do not stay organized anymore. Everything becomes mixed together. They may find themselves looking at their phone more often than they want to admit. Their hand moves closer to messages they should not send. They hesitate, stop, then think again. There is a moment of tension inside them where they feel pulled in two directions at once. And in that moment, something inside them becomes even more unstable. Because every human mind has hidden parts that are not always visible or controlled. When something emotional becomes too strong, those hidden parts become louder. Thoughts that were quiet before start to take more space. And in your absence, those hidden parts are now reacting more strongly than before. They may try to act normal on the outside, but internally things are not calm. Their mind keeps returning to you without permission. It keeps replaying moments, memories, and imagined situations. Even small details start to feel bigger in their thoughts than they actually are. And through all of this, you remain at the center of their focus. Your absence becomes something they cannot fully ignore. They may imagine you moving on, living your life, and not thinking about them at all. And even though these are only thoughts, they affect how they feel. Each imagined scene adds pressure to their emotions and affects their sense of pride and control. Every time they picture you being fine without them, something inside them reacts. It creates discomfort. It creates doubt. It creates emotional tension they did not expect. It is not just about missing you anymore. It becomes about what your absence represents inside their mind. And here is the deeper part of it. The human mind does not like empty emotional space. When there is silence, it tries to fill it with meaning. When there is no clear answer, it starts creating one. So they begin building explanations, stories, and assumptions. They go back to past conversations and moments, trying to find hidden meanings in everything. They replay things you said. They think about what you meant. They question what they might have missed. Even neutral memories start to feel emotionally charged in their mind. Nothing stays simple anymore once it is filtered through their thoughts. Every memory becomes something they analyze again and again. Every detail feels like it carries importance, and slowly their thoughts begin to turn inward. Instead of understanding you clearly, they start focusing more on themselves, their reactions, and their feelings about the situation. Deep inside, a more instinctive part of the mind starts taking over. This is the part that reacts before logic steps in. It does not always think in words. It reacts in feelings, impulses, and pressure. And this part begins to push them in directions they do not fully understand. You remain the center of this internal movement. They may feel a strong urge to reach out, to reconnect, or to test if the connection still exists. But at the same time, they feel fear about doing it. Fear of rejection, fear of not being in control, fear of how they will feel if nothing changes. This conflict builds pressure inside them. Want and worry start competing with each other. Their mind feels split. One part wants connection, the other part tries to protect their pride and emotional safety. Every sign of your life moving forward adds another layer to this. Every imagined update about you living normally without them creates another emotional reaction. Even if you are not doing anything directly, their mind keeps creating scenarios and reacting to them. And the difficult part is that none of this is visible from the outside. They may still appear calm. They may still act normal in daily life. But inside, there is a growing emotional storm that no one else can see. It is silent, but it is active. This is where things become more intense internally. Their thoughts begin to feel less controlled. Their emotions feel less predictable. Their desire to understand the situation becomes stronger, but at the same time, their confusion also increases. They feel close to something important, but they cannot fully define what it is. At this stage, the mind can either settle or spiral further, depending on how it processes the absence. Some people begin to reflect and understand themselves better. Others become overwhelmed by the pressure of their own emotions. And some move between both states without stability. Because now, it is no longer just about you. It becomes about how they are responding internally to losing access, attention, or emotional certainty. Your absence strips away the comfort they were used to, and what remains is something they did not fully prepare for. They begin to see themselves more clearly, even if they do not like what they see. They notice their own emotional reactions. They notice their dependence. They notice how strongly they are affected. And this awareness can feel uncomfortable. There is a moment where they realize they cannot fully go back to how things were before. Something has shifted. Even if they try to act the same, internally they are not the same anymore. Their emotional balance has already been changed by distance and silence. Now they face a difficult inner conflict. They want connection, but they also fear vulnerability. They want closeness, but they also fear losing control again. This contradiction keeps them stuck in thought loops that repeat over and over. And in these loops, their mind keeps returning to the same place. To you, to your absence, to what changed, to what they cannot fully fix or control anymore. The more they think, the more complex it becomes. Because now it is not just about missing someone, It is about facing their own emotional reactions without distraction. And that is something they cannot easily escape. Your distance has quietly removed the distractions they once used. It has removed the illusion of control. It has removed the comfort of certainty. And now they are left with thoughts they cannot fully silence. They may still try to reach out in different ways. Small attempts, indirect actions, emotional testing. But none of it feels the same as before. Because now they know something has changed in the dynamic, even if they cannot fully explain it. And this realization creates even more internal pressure. Because when control feels lost, the mind tries harder to regain it. But in doing so, it often creates even more emotional confusion. At the center of all this remains the same fact. Your absence has created space. And in that space, their mind is filling in everything they avoided before. Feelings, fears, assumptions, and unresolved emotions all start rising together, and slowly, what they once ignored becomes harder to ignore. Not because of what you are doing now, but because of what your absence is revealing inside them. In the end, this is what they are facing. Not just distance from you, but distance from their own emotional stability. And in that silence, they are being forced to see things they did not want to see before. What happens next depends on how they handle that inner pressure. Whether they understand it, resist it, or become overwhelmed by it. But one thing is clear. Your absence has already changed the way they think, feel, and respond, even if they have not fully accepted it yet.